"You're on in 5 minutes," Callie said, turning on the television monitor, which was mounted high in one corner of the dressing room. The titles were coming up. The Al Jackson Show, Made in the USA, was emblazoned across the screen in red, white, and blue. Then the camera went live to Al Jackson sitting at his desk. He had an American flag on the wall behind him, along with photos of himself shaking hands with Ronald Reagan and both of the George Bushes. There was a candid framed snap of himself with his aged mother sitting up on his desk, facing the camera. Cary was mildly surprised that the air in the studio wasn't scented with apple pie. The camera panned across the audience. There were a few bald-headed and leather-jacketed youths, but most of them were blond, blue-eyed, fresh-faced college boys. There were very few females in the audience. Some of the kids held up handmade signs as the camera panned. "Al rules, you drool, skinheads forever, Heil Hitler, hi Mom." The camera came back to Al, close up. He looked into the lens and said very solemnly, "Good evening. Tonight we welcome author Cary Bouchard." The audience booed, whistled, and jeered. "I use the term author loosely." More hoots and hollers from the crowd. "This man, again I use the term loosely, has made a fortune by berating, humiliating, and killing women, on the printed page only, of course." His tone was snide and implied that there may be more to it than that. "Women like your sainted mother, like your beautiful girlfriend, like your beloved sister. This sicko takes pleasure in writing about killing women. Is he a faggot or just a psycho? We'll find out. Welcome, Cary Bouchard." Cary stood dumbfounded, staring at the monitor as the camera panned the audience, who were looking more and more like an angry mob with the ticking of each second. Cary could almost picture torches and pitchforks stowed beneath their chairs. Callie McCourt gave him a shove and said, "That's your cue." Cary scrambled out the door, and a stagehand grabbed him by the arm, practically flinging him out. Cary stumbled and staggered, much to the loud amusement of the audience, then seated himself with as much dignity as he could muster in the chair next to Al's mahogany desk. Al didn't acknowledge him. Instead, he continued to address the audience. He looked intently into the camera. His first book was called Vengeful Ghost. There was nothing special about that one, a typical badly written pulp horror about a malevolent spirit. He did kill a nice old lady in it, but other than that, nothing special. Even I could write a more interesting shopping list. The audience laughed, and there was a smattering of applause. But then he comes out with The Brandy Killer. Al held up a copy of the book, and the audience booed and hooted enthusiastically. "This book reveals the true psyche of our twisted author." Al opened the book to a dog-eared page and began to read. Bonfilio's hands tightened around the Brandy's soft, yielding neck. She coughed and tried desperately to pull away as he choked the life from her naked, bucking body. Her erect nipples brushed his arm and enraged him further. "You like this?" he sneered. "You want it?" The Brandy only managed strangled cries as the strapping Italian unzipped his pants and— "I won't disgust you any further," Al said, punctuating his statement by slamming the hard covers of the book. Cary couldn't help jumping. Then he shifted in his seat, hoping the camera had not been on him. The camera was actually on the audience, who were whistling and jeering. Then it came back to an extreme close-up of Al's concerned face. "Mr. Bouchard, why do you hate women?" "I don't," Cary stated evenly. "That is only a story. I have to write what sells." "You do, huh?" Al looked at his audience. "I think he's sick and is finding a way to turn that mental illness into big money. What do you think?" The audience's reply rose like a barbarian battle cry. Al Jackson turned back to Cary. "Oh, I see. Children's books don't sell. Spy thrillers don't sell. Romance novels don't sell. Tell that to Jackie Collins and Danielle Steele. Those two ladies could buy and sell you 100 times over, my friend." "Of course they could, but this is where I have found my audience. Your audience, huh? Where does your fan mail come from? San Quentin?" Al and the audience sniggered together. Cary knew he had already lost. He couldn't very well defend the genre. He hated it too. He decided to try and use that angle. He smiled and said, "Yes, that's very funny. You're probably right. I, personally, am rather squeamish and don't care for the whole serial killer chic trend, but I must make a living." "Yeah, well, you're such a sissy boy. How can you write scenes like that? Don't try and tell us you've got a ghostwriter." Those last words plunged an icicle through Cary's heart. He looked up sharply, but Al was already moving on. "This guy." Al was looking into the camera again. Obviously hates women. He made his hero a sociopathic serial slayer of women who look like his mother. Mr. Bouchard here blames all of Bonfilio's problems on the dear old mom. So she was working as an exotic dancer to support her son. Sometimes single mothers have to take desperate measures. What was your mom's problem? Al asked Cary, leaning in so close that Cary could smell the other man's fetid breath. Cary shook his head vigorously from side to side. I didn't hate my mother. I loved her. Did you love her the day she went insane and tried to kill you?